It was very interesting. I'm a big fan of like psychological thrillers, and this has that nice sci-fi thrill element.
Psychological thriller horror with a sci-fi element. There's a lot of drama to it, but it's an extremely moody movie.
It has elements of sci-fi, obviously because of the script itself. It has elements of horror, and then it has great elements of drama at times.
It's a techno thriller with a little bit of a revenge element, I would say, and maybe some twinges of horror.
I think in like 2018, we made a short film I wrote called Memory Leak, which shares a lot of story ideas. And I really liked the premise to Memory Leak, but I wasn't super thrilled with the execution on it. And not so much like the camera work and stuff, just the performances, because I was in it. And it just felt like it was missing something. There was too much story in it for a short film, so nothing felt like it was fully explored. And so then I wrote a bunch of stuff, but I kept writing things to be able to make them feature length, but also for a very low budget. And so that's where Transient came from, where it was like just a few characters, few locations, and I thought it'd be doable on a low budget.
Yeah, I thought the script was fantastic. Chris and I kind of have a little partnership where we read each other's stuff and give feedback and help with script editing. But yeah, it was a great script, and probably my favorite of the features he's written.
My husband in real life, Rich, he ended up actually being kind of a technical director for some of the scripts, so he kind of went through it and took a lot of the parts of it that were sort of a little bit more science fiction-y and like kind of added an element of technical reality to it.
I think that after people watch this movie, they will really start to question how much of us is dependent on our memories. You know, like if you don't have your memories, are you really you? And how much memories play into who we are as a person and what that means for our life.
This is our first feature. Like, we've done shorts before, and a lot of people have never worked on like something this big of a project. So there's a lot of like, not really knowing how long it's gonna take to set up this. You estimate, and then you don't really know until you're there. And sometimes you work later into the night because of it, and then it's just like part of it. So there's a lot of like learning with that. Like, you know, you have to get the stuff. So it's gonna be like, we're gonna finish whenever we finish kind of things. So that was kind of like a learning curve, an experience for me.
All right, camera rolling, sound rolling, slate.
Transient, scene 47, take 1.
I've worked on projects this big, but not directed a crew this big before. And so it presents new challenges that I wasn't completely prepared for, but I think that's how it goes on a feature film. There's lots of things you're not gonna be expecting, and that's how you learn a lot of stuff. So I learned a lot. There's a lot of things I do differently on my next feature length film, but overall I think the experience was pretty great. And just looking at the footage we've captured and everything, and the performances of all the actors, I think we have something special. So definitely challenging moments, but tons of fun too. So yeah, it was a really great experience.
Chris is like he's one of the funniest people I've ever met, and like by far the funniest director. So, but it's interesting because we'll just be like BSing so much, and it's such a moody film. But we'll just be BSing between takes and then go right into a very serious scene, and it's just like in and out so easily.
Haze it up. Haze it up.
I know it's good. It's catching the rays.
Okay, here we go.
He's funny. He doesn't take things. I mean, he takes his craft serious, but he's so lighthearted. He makes everyone feel very comfortable. You don't have to feel like you're like walking on eggshells on certain productions. So I really enjoy that. It's like talking to a friend. I really love that. And he's funny.
Yeah, I'm not good, or at least I don't think I am, at talking to actors, especially like giving notes to actors in the moment. It's something that I struggle with. I can talk or I have more of a vision in my head for the visuals. And there's just times where I'll like move the camera and shit because I have an idea of what I want. But with the actors, it's always really difficult for me. So what I just kind of did is started, when I saw people, I was like, I could identify them as that character. And so from that point when I saw Greg, like I kind of already pictured him as David. And so from that moment on, it was like, Greg is David, David is Greg in my head. And so I didn't have a very specific picture of the character beforehand, and he just kind of became him. And so what I like to do is give actors a lot of leeway, especially ones that I feel like are prepared and know the character. Like I feel like Greg and Eric knew their character and Sugey more than I did. And so at that point, I kind of just trust their judgment. Essentially, I do what I think a lot of directors do when things are good, is I just take credit for other people's, talent. And I just relied on it. I mean, there's just been so many times in short films where it's like, I half think something through, but then like the actor shows up and they add so much more than I was expecting to the performance, and just, lift the movie up in a lot of ways. And I think that's again what they did. We did spend time preparing with them, a few meetings, discussing the characters and talking about their backstories and their relationships and all that kind of stuff. Kind of fleshed out some of the details so that we were all kind of on the same page about the characters. But the performances were their own. I never really dictated how they play their characters. They just kind of fell into it, and it seemed really natural, so I let them do what they needed to do. As far as if a line isn't natural, cut it or change it, all that kind of stuff.
Well, working with David again is probably bringing up some old memories. What?
It's a funny choice of words, that's all.
I'm always attracted to anything that makes you think that humanity is complicated and messy. And I think everybody who is a character in this film is messy and has an element of good, has an element of bad. Like it's very hard to say that they're one thing or another. You can understand them and the decisions that they've made. So I think it definitely creates conversation. That's the joy, is like you want people to leave and kind of really think back to what they watched and think back about sort of like the ethical, moral questions that the film raises as well.
I think this movie will surprise people with all the different twists and turns that it takes. I think it starts out, in a way that you wouldn't think that it's going to end up. And I think that it really does something interesting with playing with the concept of memories and loss and grief and how we cope with that and all of the crazy things that people will go to get back what they felt that they lost.
There's a lot of working pieces, a lot of character development, a lot of like different dimensions, and it still leaves you with some questions.
A lot of people, I think, write these intricate backstories of their characters before they even get very far in the story, but I just kind of start writing and see where the story takes me. I do that and I get a draft out, but then I'll keep going back and refining and adding and tweaking stuff, so I feel like the characters are, at least, they have their own identity in some way.
I really liked the character and knew that it was something I wanted to play. I don't often get cast as the guy in the suits, the business guy, because of my tattoos and everything. So I was like, that would be really fun to do, and it seems like more of an in-depth character. It wasn't just very surface level, I wear suits, It's kind of like there's this guy who's business, but behind all that business is some deeper stuff. Felt like he really had an arc with his development, aside from what's just kind of written into the story, just emotionally and under the surface. There was a lot of different emotions that we got to play with.
I really loved how collaborative, especially our main three people were. It's like, I think people had titles because it's easier to give people titles, but in reality, Chris, Tony, and AJ really were collaborating on a very high level with no ego, really just trying to make the best product possible. And that was a joy to see, and I know it motivated the rest of the crew and the rest of the actors to kind of step up as well to do that and to just make a quality film at the end of it.
This thing is everything. As soon as you take it off, they're just memories again.
Yeah.
Isn't everything eventually?